Alright, so today's lesson is lesson 58. We're going to be graphing quadratic functions. So yesterday we looked at pictures of quadratic functions, right? We identified the important parts of the graphs. So now we're going to be looking at the actual equations and graphing them ourselves. Okay, so we're going to graph specifically, we're going to use the vertex and a table to create these graphs. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is put the equation in standard form. So this y equals ax squared plus bx plus c is the standard form for a quadratic. Okay, it's just like y equals mx plus b. That was your standard form for a line, right? This is going to be your new standard form for these U-shaped graphs. So first thing you're going to want to do is put it in that form and then identify what's my A, what's my B, and what's the C. Okay, then you're going to evaluate this, negative B over 2A. And that's going to give you the x coordinate of the vertex. Okay, remember the vertex is an ordered pair, right? X comma y. So negative B over 2A will give you this x value. So once you know where the point of the U is, right, it's either going to be the max or the min, the vertex. So once you know that middle point, you're going to use the table. You're going to find two x values that are bigger than the vertex x, and then two x values that are smaller than it. Then you will solve for the y coordinate of each of those to complete your table, and plot those ordered pairs on your graph. And finally, you'll connect them with a U-shaped curve. Any questions on any of the vocabulary up here before we get started? Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds to finish writing these down. Alright, so here's our first example. This is just y equals x squared. So we're going to eventually be making our table, right, with an x and a y. First, though, let's look at the equation, and we want to make sure we're in standard form. So remember, we have our A, our B, and our C, and here we just have an invisible 1 in front of the x, right? This is just like 1x squared. So we have that for A. B and C, though, we don't have it plus anything x or plus a number, right? This is like plus 0x plus 0. You can think of it like that, right? So our A is 1, our B is 0, and C is 0. Okay. Questions on that? Do you have a question? No? Good?
I was going to ask how you got A equals 1.
The 0. Okay. Yeah, so just from our equation, okay, it's already in standard form, so we can just look at each of those pieces. Okay, the next thing we want to do is solve negative B over 2A, right? That's the next step. So we're going to see if I plug in my B and A here, that's just going to be negative 0, right, divided by 2 times 1, which is just 0 divided by 2, or 0. Okay, again, I'm using the formula in my steps. Focus first. I'm using the formula that's in my steps, right, negative B over 2A. From my equation, I know that B equals 0 and A equals 1. So I'm just plugging those in for B and A in this formula. So negative B over 2A turns into negative, instead of B, I'm putting 0, over 2, and then instead of A, I'm putting 1. Because that's what A is in my equation. There's an invisible 1 in front of that x squared, right? Okay, so dividing, and then 0 divided by anything is just 0. So that gives me 0. Again, in my table, I'm going to use this as my middle point, because this is the x value of the vertex. So that's going to go in the middle. Then I'm going to go up 2 points and down 2 points. Okay, so the next x values will be 1 and 2. And then the x values above that are going to be negative 1 and negative 2. Okay. Now I'm plugging these x values in to my original equation to solve for y, right? Just like you would for a line. When you're first learning how to graph lines, you plot points, right? You plug in the x, solve for y, and then you have an ordered pair. It's the same idea here. We just have a little bit different of an equation. So I'm going to erase the extra part that I added because that's just, bless you, that's just 0, right? The part that I added was just 0, so I'm just going to look at y equals x squared and start plugging in my values. So first I'll have y equals negative 2 squared. When I square negative, it becomes positive, right? So this is just positive 4. Okay, same thing below that, y equals x squared. I'm going to plug in negative 1 for x, so that's y equals negative 1 squared, which is just 1. Okay, below that, plugging in 0, y equals 0 squared is just 0. Oh, sorry. And continuing, I plug in 1, so I get 1 squared, that's just 1. Plugging in 2, I have 2 squared, which is 4. Okay, so now I have x values and y values, so I'm going to write those as ordered pairs. Okay, so I'll write them below here. Negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, oh, sorry. 0, 0, 1, 1, and negative 2, sorry, and 2, 4. Okay, so those, now I have 5 points that I can plot on my graph. And I can draw the U-shaped curve. Okay, so plotting these points, I have negative 2, 4, then I have negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. Okay, so I've done all my steps 1 through 5. I just need to do step 6, which is to draw a U-shaped curve. So when I connect these, remember how they looked yesterday? They're not like straight lines on the sides. It's like a curvy U. So I'm going to do my best to kind of do that here. Okay, so there's my U-shaped curve. All right, any questions on this? Yes?
Will it always? Oh,
None.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead, Marky.
no, you're right.
Go ahead.
I got things that's
Okay,
It's like,
Marky?
Is it always going to be a U shape, like with all the points? Is it always going to end up being U?
Okay, is it always going to be a U-shaped curve, he's asking? For these, when I have a squared term, yes, that's what these graphs look like. So as long as I have a square, if the 2 is the highest exponent that I have, so if I have x squared plus x plus 1, or 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, okay, do you see how I have an x squared and then maybe an x and a number? Those are all going to look like a U shape, yes. Okay, that's this form. Okay, so for the next example, we have a little more complicated, not really complicated, but just some more numbers involved in our equation. The f of x over here is really just like saying y. Okay, so if you want to think of that as y, that's fine.
How come it says fx? Like f equals...
F of x is that's what that notation is. We say it f of x. It's called function notation. So it's just because these equations are really functions, meaning that when I plug in a value, I get a value out.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like a function, like a machine. Okay, you put something in, get something out.
It's like that commercial where like you put like the battery in. And
Off topic. That's okay. So looking, this is like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, right? It's in the correct form. So now I'm going to identify what's a, what's b, and what's c. Okay, think in your head what a, b, and c are using this equation. Check yourself as I go over them. Okay, so a equals 1, b equals 4, and c equals 1. Okay, not too bad, right? Okay, the next thing we're going to do is evaluate negative b over 2a. So negative b over 2a is just going to equal negative 4, right? Plugging in 4 for b, I get negative 4 on top. Divided by 2 times a. Instead of a, I'm going to put 1. So that's just negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. Okay, now using that as my center x value, right, because that's the x part of my vertex, so I'm going to build my table around that point. going to set that as the middle point for my x. Let me make my table. Okay, so these are going to be my x values, and then on this side I have to plug in those values for x in my equation to get a y value, right? Okay, so going 2 up from -2, I get -1 and 0. Then going 2 back from -2, I have -3 and -4. Okay, again, I'm building around this center point because I want to know that U shape. Okay? Okay. Got it? Okay, so plugging in x for each of these values. So x squared, I get 16 plus 4 times a -4 gives me -16, and then the plus 1 just drops down. Okay, so 16 minus 16 cancels out, and I get 1. Question? So this again, so I get y equals, I'm plugging in -4 for x, -4 squared then, it gives me 16 for the first 16. We're good after that? Okay. Alright, then -3 going down, so I have y equals, plugging in -3. -3 squared is 9. Plus positive 4 times a -3. -12. And then the 1 drops down, so it's plus 1. Okay, 9 minus 12 gives me -3. Plus 1, I have -2. Okay. Go ahead and build this table along with me in your notes if you aren't already, so we won't have to wait to write it all down. Okay, now -2, plugging in -2 for x. I have y equals -2 squared is 4. Plus 4 times -2, -8. And then plus 1. 4 minus 8 is -4. Plus 1 is -3. Okay. Moving along, y equals and -1 squared. -1 squared is just 1. 4 times -1 is -4. And then plus 1. 1 minus 4 is -3. Plus 1 is -2. Alright, and then 0 is nice and easy. Plugging in 0, 0 squared is just 0. 4 times 0 is 0. Plus 1, so I just get 1. Okay, so again, I have my x and my y for each of these, so I have 5 ordered pairs. So I'll write them as ordered pairs. So -4, 1, -3, -2, -2, -3, -1, -2, and 0, 1. Alright, now on your iPads, go ahead and plot these points and show me the U-shaped curve that you would get from plotting those. On Doceri, sorry. Alright, so following along with me, I can plot these points. So I have -4, 1, -3, -2, -2, -3, -1, -2, it's here. Then I have 0, 1. Okay, I know my graph has a lot of little notches on it, right? These little halves, but I'm going to the correct number, right? All right, and then I connect these with a U shape. Okay. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so there is my finished graph. Any questions on this one? Okay, for the next example, we have x squared plus 2x plus 5. I want you to tell me what's A, what's B, and what's C. Talk with your partner, and then I'm going to call on someone to tell me each one, okay? Like 5 seconds for this. All right. Okay, guys, I think we should be good on that, right? A, B, and C are easy to find. So can I have Ivan, can you tell me what A is here?
1.
Right? A is 1. And what is B, Andre?
B is 2.
B is 2, good. And what about C, Michaela? C is 5, awesome. Okay, so now I want you guys to do the negative B over 2A. Okay, solve that and discuss with your partner. Make sure you get the same thing. All right, what did you get for that, Marky?
Negative 1.
-1. Okay, so let's check if I plug in -2 for B. So this is -2 on top, then divided by 2 times A, which is just 1. That's the same as -2 divided by +2, which is just -1. So I agree. Okay, and again, remember that's going to be my middle point for my table. So I'm going to go ahead and make my table. Okay, you should be making this table along with me in your notes. -1 goes in the middle. Okay, and then I'm going to go 2 up and 2 back for my x values, right? So going 2 up, counting up from -1, I have 0 and 1. Counting down from -1, I have -2 and -3. Okay, so here are all the y coordinates, the ordered pairs, and then the graph. Okay, so make sure that you have that in your notes.
I do download this.
Alright, so finishing with this last example, again I have A equals 1, B equals -6, and C equals 12. So I'm going to go ahead and solve my negative B over 2A. Plugging in my values, I get a -6 divided by 2 times 1. The negative times the -6 will give me a +6. Divided by 2 equals 3. Okay, so then I make my table, and I start with 3 in the middle. I go 2 up to get 4 and 5, and 2 down to get 1 and 2. Okay, then I'm going to write what my equation is equal to. And I'll plug in each of these x values and solve for y. So I get 7. Here's some side work to get that. To get the 4, excuse me. Okay, so that should be 4. Then 3. And if you've noticed the pattern that we have going on, this is just going to be symmetric, so I should get 4 and 7 for those last 2 values. Alright, so then I start plotting these points. So I have 1, 7, 2, 4, 3, 3, which is my vertex, right? Then I go back up, I have 4, 4, and 5, 7. Then I sketch my curve, and I'm done. Alright, so that is all for today's lesson. Thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.